Tipping has gotten way out of control. You know something is broken in the economy when you tip someone before they even do the job. I ordered a coffee, tapped 20%, and suddenly I felt like I just invested in a startup with zero revenue and high attitude. So why are we tipping everywhere now? Is it generosity, guilt, or just a cleverly disguised price increase? Tipping used to be simple. Restaurants may be your barber and the occasional pizza delivery hero, but now, self-checkout screens are asking for tips. Airport kiosks are judging you. Even buying a bottle of water feels like a moral decision. Today, we're breaking down why tipping has spread into nearly every corner of daily life, what's really driving it, and how it quietly impacts your finances. Section 1: The Psychology of Guilt Spending. Ever notice how tipping feels less like a choice and more like a pop quiz on your morality? You're standing there holding a $5 coffee, and suddenly a screen asks if you want to tip 20%, 25%, or betray your entire upbringing by hitting no tip. That's not choice, that's psychology at work. This is called guilt spending. Businesses design the moment to make you feel observed, even if no one is actually judging you. The screen is tilted toward you, the employee is right there, and the options are preloaded with higher percentages. You're not just paying for a service, you're managing how you feel about yourself. Humans are wired to avoid social discomfort. Even a few seconds of awkwardness can push you to spend more than you planned. It's the same reason people donate at checkout counters or say yes to things they don't need. You're buying emotional relief. Here's the catch: when this happens repeatedly, those small decisions stack up. $5 here, $3 there, it turns into real money over time. So the next time that tipping screen pops up, pause for a second. Ask yourself, am I tipping for great service or just to avoid feeling uncomfortable? Section 2: Businesses Shifting Labor Costs. Let's talk about something a little uncomfortable. Tipping isn't just about generosity anymore, it's quietly becoming part of how businesses pay their employees. Traditionally, companies were responsible for wages, and tips were a bonus for great service. But today, many businesses are shifting that responsibility onto customers. Instead of raising prices or paying higher hourly wages, they rely on tips to fill the gap. On paper, it keeps prices looking lower. In reality, you're still paying, you're just doing it voluntarily after the fact. Think about it like this: if a coffee costs $5 but you're expected to tip $1, the real price is $6. The difference is psychological. One feels optional, the other feels expensive. For businesses, this model reduces labor costs and transfers income uncertainty to workers. Employees now depend on customer moods, time of day, and even economic conditions to earn a stable income. For you, it creates confusion. Are you rewarding service or subsidizing wages? Over time, this system reshapes expectations. Tipping stops being a thank you and starts becoming an obligation. And when that happens, the line between fair pricing and hidden costs gets harder to see. Section 3: The Rise of Digital Payment Systems. Let's be honest, tipping didn't explode on its own. Technology gave it a serious upgrade. The rise of digital payment systems turned what used to be a small, optional gesture into a built-in step you can't easily avoid. Back in the day, tipping meant dropping a few bills into a jar. If you didn't have cash, you simply didn't tip. No drama. Now every transaction runs through a screen that pauses the process and asks you to choose 15%, 20%, 25%, or custom. You can't skip it without making a decision, and that moment is where behavior changes. These systems are designed for convenience, but also for influence. Default tip options are often set higher than traditional norms. The buttons are big, visible, and quick to tap. Meanwhile, the no-tip option is smaller, sometimes hidden like it's ashamed of itself. This isn't accidental, it's behavioral design. The easier it is to tip and the harder it is to avoid, the more people will do it. Over time, this turns tipping from a conscious choice into an automatic habit. You're not evaluating service anymore, you're just completing the transaction. And that small shift is why tipping suddenly feels like it's everywhere. Section 4: Tip Inflation. Let's talk about tip inflation, because somehow 15% went from thank you to are you serious? In what feels like 5 minutes. Not long ago, 10 to 15% was standard for decent service. If someone went above and beyond, maybe you pushed it to 18. Now the default options on many screens start at 20% and jump to 25 or even 30. And the wild parts, those higher numbers are presented as normal. This is how inflation works psychologically. When higher percentages are shown first and repeatedly, they reset your expectation. What used to feel generous now feels average, and what used to feel average suddenly feels cheap. Businesses and payment systems understand this. By setting higher default tips, they slowly nudge behavior upward without officially raising prices. Over time, customers adapt, often without realizing it. But here's the financial impact. A small increase in tip percentage across dozens of transactions each month adds up quickly. You're not just spending more, you're normalizing spending more. So the next time you see a 25% option staring back at you, remember, that's not a rule. That's a suggestion. You make the final decision whether to accept or not. Section 5. The Service Blur Problem. What is the service blur problem? Because this is where tipping gets really confusing. Tipping used to be tied to clear personal service. Someone waited your table, cut your hair, or delivered your food. You could point to the effort and decide what it was worth. Now that line is blurry. You walk into a shop, grab a pre-made item, and suddenly the screen asks for tip. No table service, no customization, no real interaction, just a transaction. So what exactly are you tipping for? This is the service blur. The definition of service has expanded so much that it's hard to tell when tipping is actually appropriate. Is it effort, time? Simply being present? Part of this comes from businesses standardizing tipping across all transactions, regardless of service level. It creates consistency for them but confusion for you. And when you're unsure, most people default to tipping anyway, just to avoid feeling cheap. Over time, this blurs expectations. Tipping stops being tied to quality and starts being tied to the act of paying itself. And when that happens, the meaning of a tip changes from appreciation to obligation. Section 6. Social Pressure and Public Visibility. Why do you think tipping suddenly feels like a public performance instead of a private decision? It's not just about generosity, it's about visibility. In the past, tipping was discreet. You left cash on the table or added a percentage on a receipt, and no one really paid attention. Now everything happens on a screen, often in front of the employee and sometimes even other customers. The device gets turned toward you like a spotlight, and suddenly your choice feels visible. This creates social pressure. Humans naturally want to avoid judgment, even subtle or imagined judgment. When someone is standing right there, it feels uncomfortable to hit no tip, even if the service didn't justify one. So many people choose a higher option just to avoid that moment. It's not about the amount, it's about the feeling. You're paying to remove awkwardness. Businesses understand this dynamic. By making tipping more public and immediate, they increase the likelihood that customers will tip and tip more. Over time, this turns a personal financial decision into a social one. And when money decisions are driven by pressure instead of intention, they tend to cost you more than you realize. Section 7. Economic Survival versus Consumer Fatigue. Let's talk about the tension nobody really wants to admit. Tipping today sits right in the middle of economic survival for workers and growing fatigue for consumers. On one side, many workers depend on tips to make a livable income. Base wages in service roles are often low, and tips aren't just a bonus anymore, they are a necessity. A slow shift or a few customers skipping tips can directly impact someone's ability to pay rent or cover basic expenses. On the other side, consumers are feeling stretched. Prices are up, budgets are tighter, and now almost every transaction comes with an extra decision, tip or not. What used to be occasional has become constant. Coffee takeout rides services, it adds up quickly. This creates a quiet conflict. People want to support workers, but they also feel overwhelmed by the frequency and expectation. It's not that they don't want to tip, it's that they're being asked to tip everywhere all the time. The result is fatigue. And when fatigue sets in, people either tip less, feel guilty, or become frustrated with the system itself. So the issue isn't generosity, it's sustainability. When both workers and consumers feel squeezed, it's a sign the system may need rethinking. Section 8. The hidden cost to your budget. This is the part nobody tracks, the hidden cost of tipping on your budget. Because it's not the one big tip that hurts, it's the dozens of small ones you don't notice. $1 on coffee, $3 on takeout, $5 on a ride. Individually, they feel harmless. But stack them over a month, and suddenly you've spent an extra $100 to $200 without realizing it. That's real money, money that could have gone toward investing, saving, or paying down debt. The tricky part is how invisible it feels. Tipping happens after the main purchase, so your brain treats it like a bonus expense, not part of the actual price. But financially, it is the price. This is where awareness matters. If you're budgeting $5 for coffee but consistently paying $6 with tips, your budget is already off. Multiply that across multiple categories and the gap grows. Tipping isn't the problem, untracked spending is. When small expenses go unnoticed, they quietly slow down your progress toward financial goals. So here's the simple move: start including tips in your expected cost. Treat them as part of the total, not an afterthought. Because what gets measured gets managed, and what gets ignored gets expensive. Section 9. Cultural differences. Let's zoom out for a second because tipping isn't universal, it's cultural. And depending on where you are, the expectations can completely flip. In the United States, tipping is often expected and sometimes essential. It's built into how workers earn a living, especially in restaurants and service industries. But travel to countries like Japan or South Korea, and tipping can actually feel awkward or even disrespectful. Good service is seen as the standard, not something that requires extra payment. In parts of Europe, tipping exists but is more modest. Service charges are often included in the bill, so any additional tip is truly optional. The key difference is transparency. You know what you're paying upfront. So why does this matter? Because it shows that tipping isn't a fixed rule. It's a system shaped by economics and social norms. And recently, the American-style tipping culture has started spreading, especially through global payment systems and tourism. For consumers, this creates confusion. The same action, tipping, can mean appreciation in one place and discomfort in another. Understanding these differences helps you make better decisions, especially when traveling. Because tipping isn't just about money, it's about context. And context changes everything. Tipping started as a reward for good service. Today, it's becoming an expectation, sometimes even before service exists. When you understand why it exists everywhere, you stop reacting automatically and start making intentional choices. The real question isn't whether you should tip, it's whether the system itself still makes sense. And we aren't trying to stop tipping, rather to make sure every tip actually reflects value, not pressure. If you want to build real wealth, you have to notice the small leaks in your finances, and tipping creep is one of them. Be intentional, not emotional, with your money. And next time that screen spins around asking for 25%, just remember, you're not a bad person for thinking twice. Click like and subscribe for more money tips. See you in the next video.